Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host, Norm, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Scott Michael Davis. Scott, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
What a treat. Now, you're here now at this particular time because this Sunday, a special thing is happening.
Yeah, we're hosting the last of the season Littlest Farmers Market on Sunday, 10 a.m. at Hackett.
And it is more or less what it sounds like. It's the littlest farmers market. Can you explain it?
Well, there's a little backstory. I guess just before COVID, I probably over-engineered a lemonade stand for my daughter. I think it folded up like the
first parent ever.
I think it folded up the size of a matchbook because I was trying to fold it into a car.
That's hilarious.
And then we live, not on a busy street. So I'm like, well, I got to go out and find, someone. And I was supporting a lot of local businesses at that point, during COVID. And I was kind of miffed because I got some rejections, and I was just saying, "Hey, can my daughter put her lemonade stand up in front of your place or whatever?"
Right.
So then Hackett's Farm Supply, which is on the Taconic, right off the Taconic and Salt Point, Ed Hackett, old school guy, saw my daughter out of the corner of his eye, and I didn't even get like, "Can I?" out of my mouth, and he was like, "Absolutely."
That's
right?
so sweet.
So I put this up there, and then he went from like a full-time farm supply place to more of a weekend farmer place. So I had been thinking of ways, coming up from the city as a weekender to kind of help his business. So then I had this idea, and COVID hit, right? So it wasn't until after that we started this. So it's 12 and under, kids 12 and under, and whatever you can make, bake, whip up, you can sell. So
but it started off as just one vendor, your daughter, selling lemonade.
Well, no, it was actually a really cool community effort because I got sponsorships. We got 20 canopies. We got all these tables. I think the first event and Curtis from Northern Duchess was really cool to cover it. We had 22 vendors.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was pretty good size, and everyone had a great time.
And you said it's kids 12 and under?
Yep.
And they grow it or make it or?
Yeah, it's a little spotty in the beginning of the season, the last end of the season, right? There's a little bit more produce and pickles and things like that in the middle. But,
sure.
There's a lot of baked goods. I was really surprised, like out of the woodwork, these kids came with homemade soaps and honey and different things. So, no, we're really having a good time. And then we started this thing I think it was this third one where there's this massive water balloon fight at the end. So I think they were more excited about that than, however, there's one girl who forages mushrooms with her dad that made like $350 in two and a half hours.
Wow. You said forages mushrooms?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called for?
Well, I believe it is. I want to believe it's like a Middle Earthian activity where you go and you walk out there, and instead of a pig, you somehow find these. But
forages. Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah. Forage.
Forages. I was like, interesting.
Yes.
Wow. So she forages mushrooms and makes a lot of money. Which begs the question: who comes to this thing? I mean, apart from the parents of all these kids.
Yeah, it's been interesting because I know you through the New York ad scene, right? We have mutual friends that go way back. And I was thinking, this is going to be easy. I'll use my skills. Everyone will show up. You build it and they'll show, right? But it was a little, can I say, Herculean effort. Just I totally self-funded in the beginning in the fact that I printed postcards up, went to all the businesses in Rhinebeck, Millbrook, put postcards up, tried to get some PR releases out. And like I said, the first one, a lot of energy. And then, my God, this summer was so hot that the kids were just baking, waiting for that frickin' water balloon fight to happen.
Oh, jeez. And so what are the hours?
So it was meant to be 10 to 1, but it's like 10 to 12:30. I mean, kids get a little bit, like even the guys from the Dutchess County Fair were like, "Oh, you should set up. We got an area. We could set you guys up." And I was like, "No, you don't understand. These kids, the third hour, they're ready to rock and roll. They're ready to go
Right.
and do the summer shit. So.
Yeah, exactly. So that's amazing. So this Sunday is the final one of the season.
It's the final one. And like I said, I'd like to do a little shout out to our sponsors, which
Yeah. Shout away.
Yeah, Williams, they're always great. Matt's Auto Body. My beautiful friend Marie Claire from Corcoran, she donates. And then Crown Energy gave us a big donation. They were really supportive. And then finally, Four Brothers.
Oh, nice. They bring you some pizzas?
No pizzas yet, but at the drive-in in Amenia, they're going to feature our little ad. So I thought, wow, that's really nice.
Now, the ad and you mentioned a postcard, all this stuff. It's all just gorgeous. I mean, the art direction, the concept, everything, the editing, everything's just spotless. And that's because you're an art director by training and trade, right?
I am.
And a creative director.
And it's so interesting because there are a few people, like adults, that were like saying, "Oh, did you know you've got to go do this and you got to go do that?" And I go, "No, those are big people problems.
Right.
This is a kid's thing. I don't want to get it mucked up with big people problems."
And
right?
For example?
Well, we don't want to go into that fine print stuff, but needless to say, thank you for the compliment, but it's been a labor of love, and it's been pretty well received, and I think it's a pretty big learning curve, in the fact that, getting people excited, there's people always traveling in the summer and trying to logistically reach out to all these people, make sure they show up and that sort of thing. But we've learned, I've got some new people that are more supporting me to help set it up and all that stuff. So I think next year is going to be even bigger.
Oh, I was going to ask.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen next year. And right now it doesn't happen every weekend, right?
No, we had four. There were going to be five. We had one rain out.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, but I want to stop for a second and say,
Yeah.
I know this show has been going on for a while, but congratulations on the show.
Well, thanks.
And it's all like legit. I thought I was going to come in here and there's be like two soup cans and a string.
Just
I've
about
got real equipment here.
It's all Matt Rosenberg here,
Thanks, Matt.
whose idea this was, and whose birthday it is today. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Matt. Happy birthday to you.
Now I know another rule to add to the things.
No singing happy birthday to the founder and station manager. Matt, he turned like 32 or 40 or 29 or something. 109. You look
amazing.
Great for your age.
Right.
Yeah, well, thanks. So next year, will you shoot for 5 again, or?
Yeah, I mean,
Is it once a month?
it was meant to be kind of every 3 weeks.
Okay.
And
That seems like a good time.
and because it is kids and because it's meant to be, I reached out to 4As, and I think it becomes a little bit more of a teen thing, whereas our rule is 12 and under. Right. So
You reached out to the 4-H?
the 4-H, I'm sorry,
Okay.
the 4-H, yeah, and they were very supportive. And I was going to reach in Grieg Farm and a few Ruby Hill and to get like, hey, do you have kids? Bring them out and that sort of thing, because we really wanted to be a farmer's market, right? But there's a lot of baked goods as kids like to make and that sort of thing. But I think when they come, they get inspired to say, oh, I can do that,
Right.
Maybe I'm going to sell this. My first instinct is to sell that, but wow, they get inspired by other people. I can do mushrooms.
Right. And so do they...
The edible kind.
Yeah. Well, they're all edible.
Well, yeah.
Some of them just kind of poisonous.
Right.
So do they have to apply to you? Is there, sort of a group of people who say, yeah, no, we can't have you selling pot brownies, or
No.
we can't have you selling...
No, it's psilocybin.
It's just whatever you want, come.
Yeah. It's
And the kids don't pay
farmersmarket.com.
They don't pay for a booth or anything.
No,
so-
it's all free. And I think they got the memo after the couple of weeks, like, hey, it's not going to be all perfectly set up for you. Come early, set up your booth, fold out your table,
Right.
that sort of thing.
So they bring the table and the umbrella.
No, everything's there.
Oh.
But, the first one, it was like ready to go. Like the people who would just come, put their wares on the table and rock and roll and leave. And then I was like, wait a minute. Like, you got to set up the tents. You got to roll them up at the end. So it became a little bit more of a,
Right.
everyone kind of helping each other out.
And so if it's just people bring what they want and set up, I mean, have people brought stuff and you're like, yeah, no, you can't sell that, or that's not appropriate, or that's not age appropriate, or?
Not really. I mean, I've been very encouraging, and I'll, like in the email, I might write out to the group and say like, hey, a little less sweets. You know, I noticed that, you know, a lot of people are having like too many lemonade, too many cupcakes, that sort of thing. And, you know, but no, trying not to place any rules on anybody.
That's good. And what things have people brought that have sort of surprised you?
I think those things I mentioned, like homemade soaps. There were even homemade granola. There was the mushrooms, which I kind of knew that Golly and her dad did this. But when you see it, it looks like a bouquet from the planet Pandora. It's like they're gorgeous,
right?
You know, and they got the scales and the ounces, and they're like really into it.
That's so sweet.
And one family, the Ballards, they do, I think, maple syrup, but it's like they got the packaging, they've got the label. So some people take it more seriously than others. And then, you know, there's in the younger kids, because I didn't put like, you got to be this age.
Right.
So then there's some artists that'll make crafts and stuff.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry I didn't get to make any of those this summer.
Well, Sunday's still there. You can swing by, do a drive-by.
Sunday. I could come on Sunday.
I get a free hot dog at 12:30.
Oh, well, and see, now you're just pandering. Now you know I'll be there. So this Sunday, at what time?
10 o'clock.
To like 12:30
or
so.
When we see the kids getting
start to fidget.
Right, exactly.
Get surly with the customers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, start throwing things.
So 10 o'clock, and tell us again, all the listeners, where it is.
So it's at Hackett Farm Supply, and it's right on the intersection of Salt Point and the Taconic in Clinton Corners. You can't miss it. It's right diagonal from Stewart's.
Okay. Salt Point and the Taconic. I don't remember seeing anything from the Taconic.
Yeah, like literally, if you keep driving off that on-ramp, you'll run right into the, chickens.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah.
Hackett. And so then that's your local place.
Ed Hackett, his whole family has been so supportive. And, he even said, listen, if someone's willing to do that and stay off the iPad,
right.
I'm going to support it.
That's great. So, that's just wonderful. Oh, yeah. Did I tell everybody to turn off their ringer?
Might be my chime.
Yeah.
My chime.
Well, hats off to you for this beautiful idea. And I'm going to assume beautifully executed. And to what seems like it was a successful first year.
It was. I think beautifully executed is maybe an over-exaggeration.
Well, I said I'm assuming.
Carefully constructed chaos, perhaps.
Herding cats.
Totally herding cats.
And do you have dreams? You have big dreams for this?
Dreams. Well, you know what? It was really interesting at the inaugural, because it was in the paper. Politicians came. And they were like, and one who I won't name, but has been very supportive, gave out certificates of effort for all the kids, and there was one guy that said, hey, can you have it at our place? So, and of course Ed was like, yeah, when the page is blank, they're nowhere to be found, right? Which is so true, right? So I'm trying to be really loyal to them. I mean, we're kind of doing some different negotiation so that you can see it more from the road, because it does have a good traffic location where traffic,
right,
works. So, and
your daughter, what's her name again?
Sienna Blue.
Sienna Blue. Did she enjoy this?
She did. I wouldn't call her shy. I think she's cautiously aggressive, if that's two words that should go together.
Cautiously aggressive.
Yeah, like she's like, tepid and kind of will judge something. And then once she likes it, she'll go really into it sort of thing. Skiing, whatever it is, right? So on this one, I think she just liked having her friends there. Yeah, she doesn't really have ego in the fact that this is mine with Dad.
Right.
It's just, we're having fun.
And did she have good ideas for you? We're insistent.
Her mom is a doctor of Chinese medicine, and she's a herbologist, if that's herbalist. And so we have a pretty nice herb garden, and Sienna and she loves herbs, she loves frying sage, she loves all that stuff. So she wound up the first 3 doing these gourmet popsicles. So they were like juices, fresh juices with mint and and basil and rosemary and all these different kind of flavors. So she was having fun with that, but then she transitioned. She's a pickle fiend, so Sunday will be pickle central on her table.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And so you got a little garden. She grows the little mini cucumbers, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Mom's the big steward, but she's good about, picking and pickling. So,
right.
Yeah. Try to encourage all the kids, there's going to be some parent involvement.
Yeah.
But, to see them, the idea really was to empower kids and educate kids, to be honest, and to see what they can do with their hands, not just pick things or whatever, but the byproduct is money. And the idea is that would go to something hopefully positive, like, books and things of that nature, but, whatever it is that they apply it to. But they were like, wow, this is amazing. I can't believe I can do this all week or a couple weeks, and then I sell. So
right, make a few bucks.
Right.
And then I'm guessing the kids are buying other kids' stuff while they're there.
You tapped into the major economy that's going on there.
Oh, yeah.
That's totally what's going on.
And what are the most popular items in that age group?
It's funny. I the last one I came up with this award called the Big Pickle, because Oscar's Pickles sold out first. So
and Oscar's the kid.
Oscar's a kid, and the labels are just amazing.
Oscar made the labels.
Oh God, yeah, crayon, whole deal.
So
Amazing.
good.
Yeah. Hey, why are we staring at these?
Well, all right. Well, let's have them. As is the tradition here on Correct Me If I'm Norm on Friday evening, the guest brought in a cocktail for us to enjoy. What'd you bring, Scott?
So I brought Black Dirt Bourbon from New York Distillery.
Uh-huh.
I made Manhattans, and I love black cherry walnut bitters, and Colonial, which from Duchess. I kind of mix those up. So cheers, fellas, and happy birthday!
Cheers! So tell me again, what are the ingredients in this?
So this is like a classic Manhattan, except instead of I think because I like to use bourbon instead of rye, and bourbon's already sweet, so I use dry vermouth. A lot of people call it, if you do half perfect, like half sweet, half dry, it's called a perfect Manhattan, but this has only dry.
Interesting.
So hopefully you like.
Nice, I do. It's delicious, and I'm like drunk already. And bitters, you said some kind of bitters in here.
I like the black walnut, black cherry walnut. Why am I getting that wrong? But it has like a nice kind of like a darker cherry essence in it.
And that's what's in here.
That's what's in there.
And that's made locally, you said?
That is not.
Let's hear you.
That's not.
Okay.
That's not. But there's a little drop of Colonial, which is from Duchess Spirits in there.
What is Colonial?
It's kind of, I think, their most popular bitter. And I don't know if you noticed or not, but it used to be all bitters used to be alcohol. But now it seems like most of the ones that sell are not alcohol, and you can get them on Amazon and stuff.
Wow, I did not know that.
And I'm probably talking on my ass, but
well, it happens. That's the hobby here on Correct Me If I'm Norm.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, cheers again. Thanks for coming in and
all right, fellas.
Talking with us about the Littlest Farmers Market. I think I'm going to be there on Sunday.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Free pickle.
Come early.
To go with your free hot dog.
Living large. So prior to this, you said you'd been coming up from the city, but now you live here full time?
Yeah, my roommate from college bought a house in Milan like 18, 19 years ago. And I would always ride my motorcycle up here and keep it there for the winter. And so that's how I know this area. And then my wife is from Seattle, so she wanted a house out east because she loves the ocean. And I've loved up here. And then we're like, well, what can we get for the money and weekend house and that sort of thing? So on her birthday, we saw a listing. And we came up on her birthday, and we made an offer on her birthday.
The one you're living in now?
Yeah, it's the weekend house.
Well, what happened? How did that argument resolve? She wanted to be out east near the ocean. And
well, you've been over there. It's like living upstate, man. It's like grass and trees. And
it was a beautiful place.
Yeah.
But it's not near the ocean.
I think, you just get swooned by the nature up here.
Yeah.
And then, we had a bit of a social thing going on out east every summer. And then when we came up here after the first year, we were like, well, God, how are we going to replace that? And as you know, because you've been up here for so long, it just happens so quickly. You just meet one person, then you meet another person, and everyone's so wonderful and open and receptive. And yeah, so we did the thing, when we were weekenders, everyone was like, when you're full-time. And I was like, the city only works with the weekend house, and the weekend house only works with the city. It's how I want to be. But then COVID happened, and you're just like, what am I doing? And, you're at that life stage at a certain age where you're like, this is where we want to be.
Right. Yeah. And you work in advertising. You're currently on Permalance or staff somewhere?
Yeah, I was a creative director for a long time. And I think I'm better and prefer freelancing. And I'm working now more in the health and wellness space. And, it's still kind of classic advertising, as far as like print, radio, and television, that sort of stuff. And, you're dealing with like colon cancer and, festulas, which I just learned. Try Google that one.
No,
not many 25-year-olds want to work on that. It's like Twix, but it's kind of the same, but not, you know what I mean?
Like, well, there's a little more rules and regulations, right? And disclaimers on every commercial.
Right.
And you do that for whom?
I do. Occasionally I'll have to go in the city as a lot of people do for a meeting or something, but no, it's been, and it's kind of 30,000 foot stuff. You're doing pitches, you're giving campaign direction. It's not like you're working on, I mean, it happens, but you're not working on stuff where, banner ads and little bitty things.
That's nice. So you're mostly working from home.
Yeah.
And you're no longer on staff. Now you're all freelance?
All freelance. I'm in freelance.
Congratulations.
Now. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah.
That's
See
good.
how long this will go.
And
how much longer I can fool people.
Now, exactly what is the fooling that's going on?
Oh, no.
Right, because you got a long track record. You got a nice reel, and you've worked with lots of people.
No, it's been fun.
I checked you out before the first time I met you.
Yeah.
Your headhunter
stalked me a little bit.
Your headhunter called and said, you got to meet this guy.
He's great.
I was like, all right, whatever. She said, he's friends with George. I'm like, really?
Miss Ateca.
I called George, who likes nobody.
Right.
And George is like, oh, yeah, he's a great guy.
Right.
I'm like, all right, there you go.
No, it's been really fun. And,
So you're not really fooling anybody.
Well, like on a tangent, I was having kind of a meetup with some friends in the city, and we're going to do that old New York steakhouse thing, right? So we go in there.
To which one?
We went to
Homestead?
Sparks.
Okay.
Right. And immediately you walk in, and the guys, the big Don was whacked on Second Avenue in front of that thing, right? But you just sit down, and you're just talking about advertising the 80s and 90s, and I'm sure every decade has their brilliance, but you can just talk for days. It was so fun. I mean, I absolutely loved it, every minute of it.
This was last week. You met with a bunch of your old ad friends.
Yeah, and then there's always someone that might be new to the group, and they're saying, and it's so incestuous, as you know, like we know mutual people.
It is. We know lots of people in common. And, all of our Facebook friends are like New York ad people or our mutual Facebook friends. But, then there's a new generation, and I don't know any of those people.
No, it's true. It's true. And I think, though, that freelance really, because you work in these quick hits generally,
right?
You meet people. And when I was freelance, because I freelanced a lot in my career, and then you'll sit at a desk maybe for, a month or something, and then you'll know everyone 21 to 35.
Right.
But those days, and it's funny because, I know we're going to maybe talk about, the novel and stuff.
The what?
The manuscript.
Oh, sure.
so to
I'd
speak.
love to talk about that.
Right. But the stories are so vivid and so awesome, from that era. It was just really, you sit in a room, you get paid to look a little strange and think of weird things, and you get a good little check there, and everyone left you alone.
Yeah.
And
when you get your feet up on the desk and you're staring out the window, it's like, hey, I'm working, leave me alone.
Exactly. And people just left you alone.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of like, well, we got the data, and we got to do this, and we got to do that, and I don't know if that works, and we got to test this, and we got to do that, and it's more of a product now.
Really? How so?
Well, it's there's so much media.
I mean, the product is still your creativity, right?
It is. It's just different. I think that there was a little bit more mystery around the creative process, and now there were clients that was like, it's a necessary evil, and we just need the product insert into these slots. But now it just feels more that way. I think there's still clients that are passionate about that, but now, all the briefs are the same. It's like we want to all come together. We all want to look, be comfortable. We all want to be equal. The brief winds up being the same.
We want to connect in our shared humanity.
Yeah, we want to
save the planet.
Save the planet. Back then it was like, how many different sideways ideas can you get to come up with a unique way to proposition this product? And the McCann thing, truth well told, is so accurate. Because
that is one of my favorite advertising sayings.
It's so true.
All the time. It's the truth well told. I didn't know that was a McCann thing.
Yeah. But my second favorite was, you remember Cliff Freeman?
Sure.
They did, if anyone is out there understands, like literally they didn't give they gave off the feeling they didn't give an F about awards, and they were just all laying on the floor, and there were thousands and thousands of these awards.
In cardboard boxes.
But they created all the funny in the 90s, right? So the pizza, the Little Caesars, the budget, car rentals, all that stuff, the Alamo, whatever it was. But their mission statement was entertainment sells, 2 words.
Right.
And that's what they did.
I don't think I ever knew that.
Yeah.
That's a good one. My second favorite advertising saying is, nothing kills a bad product faster than good advertising.
Love it.
And I trot that out. People all the time like, oh, advertising, making people buy shit they don't need.
Right.
Well,
or want.
Mostly
George Carlin.
Mostly not. And if that does come to pass, people buy shit they don't need, if it's bad stuff, they're never going to buy it again. And that bad stuff is going to be out of business in no time at all.
So true.
Yeah. So you've been doing it for
30 years.
30 years.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good run.
And what are some of the most memorable moments of being an advertising creative?
I think, I grew up, my dad was a machinist at a chemical company, middle class people in St. Louis. I'm from Missouri. And it wasn't until my second job that I was in a plane, right? So I was probably 25 years old on my first plane to Indianapolis. Right. So I think the brilliance of advertising, if you're good at it and you have the opportunity, is the travel and seeing the world and being exposed to amazing things. It just, I've been all over. I've traveled probably almost more with my work than personally. I've been all over the place.
Which makes me think you've traveled a shit ton personally, because I used to do what you were talking about, and I traveled all the time.
All the time.
Like a couple of times a month on a plane going somewhere for a presentation or a shoot or whatever. And, and I only did it for a handful of years. Still, it's more than I traveled a bunch personally. It's still a lot more than I ever traveled personally.
Yeah. J.J. Jordan, who was my first boss at J. Walter Thompson in New York.
What a great name.
One day he was like, bring your toothbrush to work tomorrow. And next thing I know, like, no clothes, I'm going to Cologne, Germany for Photokina. So it was like, you never know, there's that much travel. So. Right.
And did you enjoy that? Were you single at the time?
No, I was with someone all of my 20s. And then some relationships, obviously, in my in my 30s, and then I was married again in my 40s.
And if one
Still married.
If one say wanted to read a book about those
nice segue.
those years, where would they be able to get such a book?
You've been so supportive. Yeah. I finished a manuscript, but it's been a long process in developing it. Over probably 25 years. I had a life event happen to me when I was 32 that was pretty jarring, and I had a motorcycle at the time and just left New York and just got out of there. And then the idea was just to go as far west as I could. And I got a call and I'm for work, and it kind of re-energized me, and I came back. But I had a friend that was seeing a bunch of Spalding Gray talks. And I don't know are you familiar? Have you ever seen Spalding Gray do a monologue? It's just like amazing. And I was like, oh my God, I think and I could write like this guy. You know, the way he took personal experiences, and there was a little neurotic thing, you know, Monster in the Box, you know, writer's block thing. And I started writing. And it was a kind of a stream of consciousness memoir that took me probably 3 months to create, and it was done. And over the years, even though I think I wanted to publish it, it just became cathartic for me.
Right.
So then when I would be in a new relationship, I'd say, hey, if you want to get to know me, read this thing. Right.
Right.
Oh my God, it's so funny. It's so entertaining. What are you going to do with that? I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. But then I'd pick it up and I'd start adding more to it. So probably about 6 years ago, I decided, you know, why don't I just take the restraints of a memoir off and make it a novel, make it fiction. And that's what I did. And I'm pretty happy with it. And I'm kind of shopping
But a
around.
historical fiction rooted in a lot of...
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people say that freshman novels are pretty, you know, autobiographical, and in this one it is. But I got to tell you, like, I think it's kind of an interesting story. So you remember Rhinebeck had this thing called The Porch? And it was basically like Rhinebeck's version of Moth.
Yeah.
So it's 10 minutes.
One of
story.
One of the guys who comes here and does a radio thing, John Nathan, was I think the host of that.
Oh God, he's such a great guy. Yeah. Right.
Wonderful host.
Wonderful host. So I thought to myself, like, hey, I can tell a story. This would be great. I want to do this, right? So I had this idea. Oh, I'm going to take these 83,000 words and somehow turn it into 10 minutes. Right. And that's going to be my talk.
Oh, is that what you're working on now?
No, this was like probably at least 6 years ago.
And you did that?
So I stand up, and it's unnerving, right? Because there's like a lot of people, lights are on you, really, really bright. And conceptually, the idea was, which is in what my story is about, is this guy that's as cocky as hell, you know, partying at New York guy. And then there's a shift that happens where he gets his knees knocked from underneath him, and he gets humbled, and there's a turn, right? But I was trying to create this tension of being this misogynistic, bigger than life guy in the story. And all I saw was kind of deer lights. It was like the thud. Like, it was like, I think everyone needed a safe place after the first. Yeah. I think after the first 5 minutes, everyone needed to go to a safe place, because it was like they did not get that, you know, this was a piece that was personal, but it was a big life change moment, right? Where, you know, someone who really thought his shit didn't stink had a come to Jesus moment. Right. So.
Right. But I read the book.
Right.
And it's about the come to Jesus moment, as you put it.
Right.
I mean, it's about sort of not necessarily, I wouldn't say falling, but climbing down off of that mountain you'd built for yourself, and relearning some humility. And I mean, it was a lovely read.
Oh, I appreciate that. But rule of thumb, not easily conveyed in 10 minutes.
Well, I want to hear more about that. First off, hats off to you for trying. So you thought, oh, well, I'll just sort of, you know, make this into a 10-minute thing.
Right.
And it'll be the same thing. Here's this cocky guy.
Yeah, almost like a synopsis.
And then here's the fall, and here's redemption.
Right.
Relearning humility, which is a great ending. But So you did this. You made it in a 10-minute thing. You practiced it. People don't go up there with notes, right?
Okay, so here's the interesting thing, and there was even like a cast member from Saturday Night Live that did one, and she was kind of
at the porch.
At the porch.
When I saw one or two at Spiegel Tent.
It's a really great thing.
Is that where yours was?
No, the two venues that they generally do is that church in Tivoli, and then that barn like out on Outpost Road or whatever.
Okay.
So there's two ways that people go. They go memorize, or they go, hey, the story's so second hat, like I know it, I just riff it, right? And I was like, I've written this thing and there's some good flow. I'm going to try to memorize it. Right. But I realized even that woman from Saturday Night Live, she had memorized hers and she stopped and had to pick up a piece of paper and go back and figure out where she was.
Right.
So my advice, if you're going to do it, is just like, it's got to be a lived moment that you could just tell to like your friends.
Right.
But my point is like I got up there and I was just like, I was a big cock creative from New York City that was, my shit didn't stink. And I was like partying 24/7 and doing blow. And it was just like, oh my God.
And 2 minutes.
What is this guy doing?
Yeah. So 2 minutes in, people are like, ew.
Yeah. Ew.
Oh, what a bummer.
Right.
So,
well, I you know what? I think in retrospect, that was a percentage of people. I think I was happy with my performance. But,
yeah. And would you do it again differently?
If I were invited back?
Yeah. I mean, do you think you said you're happy with a story? Would you rearrange it a little bit and do it again?
I'd move on.
Move on to something else.
Move on. Yeah.
So you enjoyed the experience anyway?
Loved it.
That's amazing.
Loved it. Frightening.
Despite having a lukewarm reception.
Yeah, I mean,
losing some people.
You give so many live performances and your art and your radio show and stuff like that, so you're pretty comfortable with it. And I give advertising presentations all the time.
Right.
But there's something about these concert blinding lights and people almost, that are there, that you're like, wow, this is kind of unnerving. I'm kind of bearing something very personal.
Yeah. Huh. So are you working on a next one?
Like I said, I wrote him back. Like
John.
Yeah. And he was like, yeah, we've got some people in the queue. And I was like, oh no, what happened?
Right. Well, I imagine he's got tons of people in the queue all the time.
I think so.
And I'm just thinking, I have no idea that, every time out, one or two people just kill and are widely loved. And he's like, you guys are coming back.
Yeah, I think there's generally like probably 6 people. And from my personal experience, two kill it.
Right.
You know what I mean? But no, he does a good job. And it's really neat to see people feel empowered to do that, to bear it. Because a lot of it, there's, like some fringe that do the comedy thing, but a good deal of it's pretty poignant and pretty deep.
Right. Yeah, I love those things. I saw one down in Beacon a few months ago called The Artichoke. It's just people standing up telling their stories. And it's really delightful.
Yeah, it's like long format spoken word, right?
Yeah, I guess. It seems like, it just seems like spoken word. They're telling their stories. I mean, though they almost all seem autobiographical.
Yeah, I think they have to be.
Oh.
They have to be. And what he does is he wants, I think it was like a minute or 2 minutes, record yourself.
Right.
Give me a bit, send it to me. Let me see what it is. So he knew like what the gist was,
Right.
But my God, it's like being, like waterboarded in front of all your friends for a minute. It's like, holy shit.
And what did people say afterwards? What did the friends say?
Oh, I think there's always the congratulations.
Sure.
I ran into someone at a Halloween party like a couple weeks later, and I was like, hey, do you remember the porch? And he goes, people didn't get it. I got it. So it was like, oh, okay. That's
hilarious.
Yeah.
Is that the person's exact voice that you just did? Because if they're listening, they're going to self-identify.
Well, it was a Halloween party, and he was
see.
dressed as Elvis and an ape, and he was the King Kong.
Nice.
So, yeah.
That's pretty good.
It's a good conceptual costume.
Yeah. So I did not realize, whatever, 5 years ago, maybe you said, hey, I wrote a book, it's a manuscript, would you look at it? It's like, yeah, I'd love to. I'm honored. And it was really good. I did not realize that you had written it originally thinking that it would be a performed piece.
I didn't.
Oh,
I didn't. No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
Yeah. So the porch thing was I wanted to do it. And what stories do I have to tell?
No, but I thought you said sort of like Spalding Gray. You saw him and you thought, oh, I could do this. And you wrote this thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. About the actual writing of the manuscript.
Yeah.
Yes.
You thought that you would write it and perform it like a monologue. Or I'm still misunderstanding.
Yeah. I think originally I just probably. I think so. I think probably. And then like you're like, do I like hearing my voice? I don't know. I've never done that.
Right.
But it's satirical. It's poignant. It's, and obviously I actually find that it's more relevant now than it was in which it was written, the date in which it was written, because there is like this misogyny kind of aspect to it that kind of percolated up in our culture, recently. But I think it's much more crafted than when it was originally, and
right.
It's much more of a total piece now. So I've had like, you write a story, and you might understand this as well. Even probably the best authors, they don't get, well, not the best authors, but when you write a manuscript, no one's dying to read it. You know what I mean? Like you're like, hey, can you read this? Yeah, I want to get around to it. Yeah. And then, so I've had, for the handful of people, probably 15 people that have read it, I've had positive reactions. So.
Right. Now you just said something that was interesting. You said sort of a resurgence of misogyny, and
not a resurgence, like as you know, like advertising over the years, was a male-dominated business, right? And there was a lot of people that were pretty high up that were Me Too'd,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or not, because it was the 50s and 60s.
That's my point, is that...
Or even 70s.
Yeah, those guys got the payout, and they were asked to retire.
Right.
But when this happened... It's more about, hey, no, you're going to be socially ostracized. It's a much bigger deal, right?
Right.
But I think, there's some concepts that are kind of served up in the book that kind of, it not at all defends it. It might explain it a little bit more,
it doesn't seek to excuse,
exactly.
If I'm remembering.
Yes, exactly.
You painted a picture of a young man who was in an environment and where people often turned a blind eye to young people, sort of letting their hormones make them do stupid stuff. And you did not paint a picture of that person as a hero or a good person, but kind of a doofus who's totally swept away with whatever.
Yeah, and you know what it's like? It's like, the uncle, the bad uncle joke, right? Where it's like, oh no, like.
But this is cable, so you can tell it.
Well, no, I mean the concept of the older uncle that tells the bad jokes.
Oh yeah,
right. And all of a sudden you realize, as you get older, wait, that doesn't play. How you're acting doesn't play.
Right.
And I think that's a little bit what it's about. It's like, wait, there was this moment in time where, there was a brilliance and and they did it in Hollywood with, recently, where they're trying to, retire the Western icon, so to speak, where it's like, hey, that day's gone.
Right.
It's time to be more enlightened.
Which is
rightly so.
Rightly so. And it's great to see. And it's shocking when you watch old movies.
Shocking.
And you're like, what? Like I watched MASH. Great movie. Really wonderful. But the sexism and even racism and just like the things people say, it's like, what? No. And it really, and it's a lovely kind of shock, because it reminds you how much society has evolved to some degree, saying, no, we're not going to tolerate that kind of shit anymore.
Right.
and it gives you a glimpse of where it used to be. And it's like, oh, we have come some distance, not
100%.
far enough, but some noticeable distance. So
yeah, and how male dominated advertising was when we were coming up in it. The women that were in it were unbelievable. It's not like they were just on the sidelines or sequestered and not involved. Like the women that I worked with and I personally hired were like the most amazing people,
right?
That just were unbelievably creative and fun and not. I just feel like advertising, especially the culture within advertising, has gotten unbelievably boring.
Like today,
unbelievably boring.
And why do you think that is?
Well, there's this whole thing where, well, first of all, COVID didn't help because I think develop a culture, you got to be together, and everyone just kind of like, there just seemed there were higher stakes. And when there's higher stakes culturally, like I can't say this, I can't do these things, then you just feel creatively stifled a little bit.
Interesting.
And I think that permeates even to the day to day.
Right.
So.
Huh. So do you think you would ever go back on staff somewhere?
No, I actually am trying to kind of transition, not in the sexual way, but in the occupational career pathway. I think that, you have done many, many things, and advertising is very lucrative for me and I like it, but 30 years is a long time, so even this Littlest Farmers Market has been such a brilliant, and the photography, that I've been doing has been really exciting.
So is that one of the things you want to transition into, is being more of sort of a fine artist and entrepreneur? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I've had some pretty good response with the photography that I've posted on my Instagram, and
which is, for the listeners at home, it's Taken by Scott Davis, I believe.
It is.
And on Instagram, Taken by Scott Davis. And they're fucking gorgeous. They're just amazing.
Thank you.
Time after time, these photos are so beautiful and really impressive. And they're almost all black and white, I think.
All black and white.
All black and white. So you said, but is that, back to my question, is that what when you say you're transitioning more into a fine art realm, or what?
I don't know. I think for me personally, when you have a certain skill set where you're like, I have artistic talents, and I've built my life up in a way that this particular avenue sustains my life financially.
Right.
Then it becomes a little bit more dicey about like, how much do I need to maintain the lifestyle I have and what makes me happy, and that kind of balance. Right.
Right.
So I would love to figure out a way that, because, the way you're, hopefully in the old school way, like when you're, when you need the most money when you're raising kids and you're in your 30s, and then when you get older, you require less, and therefore you can do things that bring you not greater pleasure, because I loved advertising, but transitioning to something else.
Right. And let me just say, I don't know if we touched on this. In advertising, you were what is called an art director.
Right.
We spent a lot of time talking about your writer, which is what I did in advertising.
Yep.
And in practice, mostly a writer and an art director will work together and come up with the ideas and execute them. And in theory, the writer will write all of the copy, and the art director will come up with all the visuals. And so that's been your thing. Were you an artist as a kid?
Yeah, as I've kind of mentored people, like, I go to Rhinebeck and do the high school mentorship and all that sort of thing. But, what's really amazing about now, and when I say now, it's not this moment, but it's definitely like in the last 10, 20 years, the amount of things that you can do with an art background are way more. There's just so much more.
Example?
Well, like when I was young, when we were young, we're comparable. I know that Matt is like 23 or whatever.
It's his birthday.
Yeah, his birthday. That you could either be a commercial artist,
right,
or a commercial artist,
right,
if you had a art, sensibility,
right,
or an architect. So I wound up doing architecture. That's what I went to college for. But now we live in the visual language is so elaborate these days that there's so much you can do, you know? So I've been encouraging kids to understand that it's not, you know, with an art degree or an art background, there's so much you can do.
Right.
You know, and lay it out on the table.
And you must be pretty fluent in Photoshop and all those other sort of visual manipulation programs.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Yeah, you got to be. But those, you know, I do think that it's gotten even more. And what I try to encourage is just the simplicity of design, visualization. You know, you don't, you know, it's like almost when you do a logo, don't make it glitzy and shiny and drop shadowy and all that kind of stuff. Just make it good. You know, let it communicate an idea. Get rid of the Photoshop part. You know, learn the basics. You know,
learn to sketch. So now, thanks for that digression here. Back to the photos, which I really seriously think the world of. They're very pretty. I don't like them on Instagram because they always put a little pun caption on them.
Right.
I'm like,
you
sorry,
hate the wordplay. I get
can't reward because I
Bad
think
writing.
Yeah. Well, punny writing.
Okay.
It detracts. The images are beautiful. I show them to people often. And then I'm like, and look what he wrote.
Right.
And then I groan.
Like, I love it. You say, don't
often
say that.
people are like, what are you talking about? Stop being such a dick.
Don't be so critical.
But do you ever think of having an exhibition, an art show of those things?
Yeah, actually, there's a new studio. They converted a machine shop in Millbrook. It's called Studio 44.
Is it on Route 44 by any
It's
chance?
on Route 44. You see the clever thing?
Yeah, that is clever.
It.
Yeah, nicely done.
Yeah. So
send them my best regards.
My good friend Daron Gilt just had a show just recently. It's fabulous. It's still up. And I met the curator and owner, Claudia. You got to be careful. You got to say Claudia. You can't say Claudia. Claudia. Okay. So Claudia, who's an amazing force, is creating this opportunity for artists, right? So I shared my work with her, and looks like I might be able to have a show in January. So I'm really excited about it.
So exciting.
Cheers.
So yeah, cheers, and knock on wood. And so you'd make some prints. Do you have prints of these?
I've been doing some scaling studies to see how they'll hold up at different sizes and things. So
do you print yourself?
No. There's it's because I'm thinking about probably 22 by 22 because it's going to be, if it happens, and hopefully it happens, it'll be called just black squares.
Do you shoot them square?
When I did the Instagram thing, I was like, if I'm going to do this, and I'm going to put all the effort into it, I want to have structure to it, right?
Right.
So there were these pillars that I wanted every image to hopefully hit, which was, you know, black and white, high contrast, and a story, and to leave the viewer with, like, what happened before, what happened after, like, what's that? And maybe not all of them like hit everything,
sure,
but that's like kind of the idea, right? And I think most of them do. So because I was constrained to that square, and I was really learning to make that my medium, right? That's what I'm doing. So they're going to be like 24 by 24 or 14 by 14.
But you shoot them in the camera square?
No.
You shoot them like regular rectangle.
Yeah. And you know what, to be honest, like, you know, I have photographic training, but I'm not like, you know, like Daron, my friend, is just an amazing photographer. He's a technician, right? But good designers take good photographs. And it can be a lot about the cropping and the composition,
right,
and the lighting. And I've always loved Baroque artists and Caravaggio and all that kind of stuff. So you see really high contrast, dramatic lighting in all my work.
And what kind of device do you shoot them on?
I have two main cameras. I've got a Canon, a mirrored Canon digital that I shoot with, and the iPhone. Right. You know, because it's always there. I've got a bunch of Subway series that I love, you know, and it's like, you don't want to like bring that honking thing into someone's face. You know?
Right. And when you, I guess you take them home, you probably import them onto your computer. And are the ones you shoot in I'm guessing the SLR, are they tons bigger files than on your camera? Or?
They are. I mean, I think light is light. Like if you have really good light, things can hold up much better than, even low light with a really great camera.
Right.
So it kind of all depends, I guess.
Huh. And then I'm going to guess, you said you shoot rectangular, crop them to square. So you bring them into Photoshop.
Yeah.
And there's, a temptation to mess with them with the tools in Photoshop. Do you have any rules about that, or you just do whatever you can to make the art as awesome as it can be?
I think the rule is it's art, right? And that's kind of where it ends. But I would say that I really look at a scene with dramatic lighting because I know that's going to be converted very easily into how I see the world. Right? There's going to be a focal point with dramatic lighting and shadowing. And, and when you go into Photoshop or Aperture or whatever, and you're able to manipulate the vignette and the contrast, of course you do that. But as adding out other elements and things like that, I just kind of call it art.
Adding other elements such as what?
Excuse me?
Huh?
What'd you say?
You said adding other elements.
You want to talk about my book?
Yeah. No, I'm just curious because lots of artists are like, oh no, you can't manipulate it all in Photoshop. And,
no, I think everyone cleans up. Everyone does that sort of thing. But I think if you do something really dramatic, then you're creating some form of collage art.
So there's a line in the sand.
I think there's a line.
And you know what it is, even though you haven't maybe defined it.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of unwritten ethical rules in advertising as well as art that people tend to live by.
Well, what are some of the rules in art that you try to live by?
Well, don't take credit when you don't deserve it. You know what I mean? Like, that's no fun.
Well, where's an instance of that in photography? You're shooting stuff that's as it's happening.
Well, true. I guess I was talking more about advertising, but yeah, I don't think you want to mirror someone's work. You don't want to steal a thought or, I can do that better. I see a lot of people, especially doing portraiture and black and white work, that will say, oh, wow, there's this cool jet, and I'm going to look in the sky and find that and do my version of that. We're all inspired as artists, but,
And who are the photographers or artists who have inspired you for your fine art stuff?
I like I said, I think I'm more inspired by art and paintings, like Caravaggio, like I said, and things like that. But Bruce Hurwitz, Herb Ritz, like a lot of the black and white guys that did it really well, even Ansel Adams, just the printing techniques and how he's able to create the black and white tension, was amazing.
And but you're not tempted to print your own stuff?
Well, I don't know because, you can print your own stuff digitally, but there are people that do it and have the right equipment and the archival paper and all the stuff that it's better that you have them do that.
So here's a question sort of over your whole life. Do you recall ever seeing a piece of art or maybe many pieces of art that really changed the way you think about the world around you?
It's so interesting to say that because I was just talking to my wife about, are you familiar with Paul McCarthy?
Yeah.
He had this show at the Armory, probably about, many moons ago. And he replicated the house that I believe is Ohio or something, that it was like 3/4 scale that he grew up in. But it was so disturbing, right? It like you come, like I remember talking to Sherry the other night and saying, like, what's the word for this feeling I have watching Squid Games or these? She goes, sick. I was like, yeah, like there's a sickness, right? But it's like the Kramer portrait. It's so disturbing, or the highway traffic accident. It's so disturbing you can't look away, right? And there are pieces of art that I go out of my way to see that are super unusual, but I think the conceptual work to me is the most desirable to view. Just seeing a really brilliant portrait, or even, Annie Leibovitz, she does conceptual work. She does brilliant portraits, but she does concepts, and I love those. So
cool. Well, guess what? We're out of time.
No way.
It's been an hour. And
so cool. Cut the strings on the soup cans.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in. Amazing. Let me just say two things. Instagram, taken by Scott Davis.
Yeah.
Go there without fail. And littlestfarmersmarket.com.
Thank you.
Littlestfarmersmarket.com. And this Sunday at Hackett Farms, is that what it's called?
Hackett Farm Supply, 10 a.m.
Yeah. Tell us again where it is.
Hackett Farm Supply.
But it's on the Taconic and
Salt Point Road.
Salt Point Road.
Right.
This Sunday at 10 p.m. The last Littlest Farmers Market.
Thank you.
Scott Michael Davis, thank you
birthday.
for being here. And, happy birthday. Let's sing him out. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Matt. Happy birthday to you.
Cha-cha-cha.
Everybody have a happy Friday. Good night.